What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Beyond the Sign, a real estate podcast. I'm your host, Frank the Bank Gropman. With me, as always, is the tattooed realtor herself, Tanya Blake. How you doing, Tanya?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Episode 3 already. Pretty crazy, right?
It's been great.
Yeah, so far so good. Thank you guys for all the comments and shares and likes and everything. I'm glad you guys are really liking it. We like to tell our stories. We've been in the business a long time. So why don't we jump right into the property pulse? What do you got for me this week?
Well, we're looking at the Carver real estate market this week.
Yep.
So the Carver market is showing signs of strength with a mix of competitive pricing and quick movement.
Yep.
Through inventory, the inventory is still remaining pretty tight.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton out there.
I feel like Carver's been that way for a long time. I mean, it's not a very big town either way, but it seems like for years now it's been very low inventory. Yeah.
Right. It's a pretty desirable area.
Absolutely.
So I feel like
It's a beautiful town.
once they get there, they don't want to leave.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, people aren't selling.
Yeah. Well, the prices are climbing. The average sale price is up 6.1% from last year.
Okay.
Now sitting just above 613,000.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, again, going back to low inventory, typically when inventory is low and demand's high, prices are going to go
That's
up.
right. That's right. And with the average list price has also risen about 4.5%.
Wow.
And homes are selling closer to the asking price, and sellers are getting almost 101% above their list price.
Yeah.
So on average, even slightly more than last year.
Okay, that's good.
Activity is still steady, but it is slightly down.
Okay.
Pending sale prices are down 17% year to date, and the number of new listings dipped a little bit. So inventory's down to just 5 active listings.
Wow, 5, that's crazy.
And that's 28% lower than last year.
Yeah, 5, that's really low. I mean, that's, we've been seeing that. Inventory's been a little bit low, but we have seen, like you're saying, like days on the market and certain things like that. Like, it all attributes to the price that you're going to get.
Yeah, they're sitting on a little bit longer too.
Right?
So the average day to offer has increased from 38 to 51 days.
Wow, okay. We've noticed that in a lot of the towns in Plymouth County. That seems like that's almost double from last year. And last time we talked,
right.
It was almost double the days on market. So, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Frank, so do you have any national news for us?
I mean, what's been in the news every day? Why don't we talk about tariffs? Everybody's talking about
It's
tariffs. So
everywhere.
it's one of those things where, it affects almost everything. And
Right.
it affects our industry too. And how it affects us is that the National Home Builders Association estimates about 10% of all material that they use to build new homes are actually imported.
Right.
So certain lumber, certain things like that are actually imported. So the senior economist, Joel Brenner at Realtor.com, estimates that tariff cost of about $10,000 for the consumer. So these home builders it costs them more to build it. They pass that, pricing along to the consumer. So roughly about $10,000 increase to build a new home due just to the tariffs.
Right. So people are definitely going to feel that when they're trying to build new construction.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So that's all we have for the property pulse. Why don't we jump right into the mortgage minute? And Tanya, what are rates sitting at right now?
Yeah, rates have definitely been a hot topic lately.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, the average 30-year mortgage rate is sitting right around 6.8%, give or take some. But some sources are showing 6.84%. So we've seen a little bit of an uptick there.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're looking at a 15-year fix, they're coming in a little bit lower, closer to 6% flat.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. So if there's still a bit of a break if you're going shorter term.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but overall, rates have been kind of bouncing around, but nothing too dramatic this week. It's one of those markets where you kind of got to be touch and go with your lender and lock in when the time feels right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I saw something about inflation. Obviously, the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, that range, shows inflation month to month. So what I noticed and what I read recently is that February, the prices for the CPI was 2.8%, but in March, it actually fell to 2.4% increase. And that's been the lowest, or tied for the lowest since 2021 in the actual CPI percentage of increases in prices year over year. So that's actually a pretty good thing. So
Right. So what does that actually mean for rates typically?
Well, how inflation obviously is people don't inflation's bad, whatever. Basically, how the Federal Reserve combats inflation is by increasing the federal funds rate.
Okay. And I don't think a lot of people really know what that means. Could you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, so the federal funds rate it's also known as the overnight rate, is what banks charge each other to loan themselves money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what does that mean for us as consumers? When the banks are charging themselves more, or the Federal Reserve raises that overnight federal funds rate, the banks have to charge themselves more money. They typically, again, will pass that expense along to the consumer, typically by raising the interest rates.
Right.
So when the interest rates rise, demand will fall.
Right.
When the interest rates are lower, the buyer demand will be higher. So the fact that inflation is getting better, or it seems like it is, it could have a good effect on mortgage rates for the consumer moving forward. So again, that could change next month, but right now it's the lowest annual increase since 2021. So.
Yeah, that's great information, Frank. And hopefully we'll see those mortgage rates decline, and that'd be better for all those buyers out there.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's all we have for the Mortgage Minute. Let's get right into the best part of the show, the closing confessions. This week we're going to talk about home inspections. Tanya, what's a home inspection? Why is it so important?
Yeah, it's super important.
Very important.
A home inspection essentially is a professional evaluation of the property.
Mm-hmm.
It's done usually after the offer, but before the closing.
Yep.
And it gives buyers like a clear view of the condition of the home.
Yeah.
When we're talking about everything,
Oh,
top to bottom.
Yeah.
They're checking foundation, the roof, the HVAC system,
Yep.
plumbing, electrical systems, the appliances, even the insulation.
Even the insulation.
Yeah. So inspectors are looking for things that might need to be repaired, replaced, or need further evaluation from a professional.
Yep.
Now, I think a lot of people confuse home inspection and appraisals.
Oh, they do.
So I kind of wanted to just kind of give a quick overview of the
you
difference.
That's great.
So an appraisal is done by the bank. The bank hires an appraiser to come take a look at the property, and it's basically to make sure that the house is worth what you're paying for
Absolutely.
it. They don't want to pay for something that's not worth it.
Right. It protects them and the bank. So
right,
that's
of
smart.
course. And then the inspection, on the other hand, it's all about the condition of the home. So it's more for the buyer's benefit and to uncover any kind of potential issues or any kind of hidden problems from before they move forward.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, you basically want to know what you're getting into.
Right.
So that's essentially what that is. Absolutely. So. Yeah, I know we talk a little bit about, we try to tell stories at this time of the episode, and I know we had some good stories.
You got any good inspection stories for us?
I read about one, and I had kind of a similar happening on this, and a house in Texas, a family bought this house in Texas, and they had their home inspection. They found some rodent or pest activity and stuff, nothing crazy. But after a few weeks of living in the house, they felt like they were hearing things in the walls and like hissing noises. And sure as you know what, they had a pest guy come out and they found a den of snakes living in the wall. Oh my
God, snakes.
Yeah, so the hissing noises and the so crazy. But actually, this happened to me right here in Wareham. Right here. I mean, obviously it was probably trying to get warm in my because the base of the chimney, but to this day, I was like, that is unbelievable that I saw
So
that.
did your buyers go through with it?
No, they did not
No
buy that
offer?
house. No, they were pretty scared of that snake. So it was that was
man.
pretty crazy. I'm sure you might have a few too stories, but I mean,
I've got some stories, but nothing quite that intense.
that was the craziest one I've ever seen.
I did have one time where we were at the inspection
Yeah.
and we were testing out the garage doors.
Oh yeah.
So the inspector was checking to make sure it was safe, that all the safeties worked, and
the
well,
sensors and things like that.
yeah, the sensor did not work.
Oh no.
It came down and then went back up, and it ended up doing a ton of damage to
Oh,
the
wow.
property. So, we had to do some negotiating after that, but in the end, the inspector actually
Had to
took
pay
care
for
of it.
that.
and he
Yeah,
had
you had to pay
it.
for that. I'm sure. I had one that came down and the sensor, they put the bucket there and the sensor's supposed to stop it.
Right.
It didn't work and the garage door buckled.
Oh,
had the same thing
wow.
happen. Not with yours. Like yours went back up and ripped
Yeah.
stuff up like that.
Well,
but
it's a
I
good,
had that
good
happen
thing to
too.
check, because that's a pretty big safety
Oh yeah,
concern too.
it's crazy some of the stuff. I mean, I had and I'm sure this happened to you too, but I had an inspector in the attic and he stepped in the wrong spot and went right through the
Oh,
ceiling.
wow.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, that
Yeah.
snake one was just crazy to me. That was like the
that
craziest thing.
that tops it right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just wild. So, yeah, that's all I really have for today. I mean, is there anything else you want to, have any tips really about like what buyers and sellers can do or
Sure.
expect for the home inspections?
Yeah, I do have a few tips.
Okay.
For buyers, I would say it's super important to be present at your inspections.
Yeah.
Make sure you're walking through the house with the inspector, so you're
Yeah.
in real time going through, and he can explain all the the issues that are going on.
I tell my buyers the same thing because it's like you can get this, 30-page report and just read all this stuff like, oh my gosh, but if the inspector's there saying like, yeah, I'm going to mark it in the report, but this really isn't a big concern,
Right.
then it's good to hear it that way.
Right,
I agree.
definitely. And, ask questions.
Oh, ask a lot of questions.
Anything you don't understand,
Yep.
a good home inspector will hold your hand and walk you through that.
Yep.
And I also want to say too, don't, go over the top and be
Yeah.
nervous about everything. Not every house is perfect.
There is no perfect house. That's what they
even,
say,
even
right?
new construction.
New construction is going to be problems, like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
as long as it's nothing that you can't handle, I agree completely.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
And then for sellers, I would say a few of my tips would be to do a pre-inspection check.
Yep.
And have your own inspection done. That way you can kind of catch any problems that might be in the house
Yeah.
that you weren't aware of,
That's
and that
smart.
way there's no big surprises for
Yeah.
the buyer's inspection.
That makes sense. And I sell the sellers the same thing. And if there's any, you got a loose screw here or a loose this, that, if you know there's something wrong that needs to be tightened up, just
Right.
do it before you even list the house. Never
Right.
mind before an inspection.
Right.
But
And if
things
you don't
like
want
that,
to, if you don't want to fix those things, be upfront.
Yeah,
Being transparent builds trust with those buyers. So I think that's important also.
absolutely. So great tips. And that's the end of the episode. So we really appreciate you guys liking and subscribing and all that and sharing. So really appreciate it, guys. And tune in next time.